What would you do if the person you loved clung to relics that seemed to whisper secrets from the grave? I never thought I'd be asking myself that question, but here I am, standing in the cluttered attic of our new home, staring at my boyfriend, Ethan, as he cradles a chipped porcelain owl like it's the key to his soul. The air is thick with dust and the faint, musty scent of old feathers. Everywhere I look, there are birds-carved ravens perched on shelves, glass sparrows glinting in the dim light, and tiny brass finches tangled in cobwebs. They're not just decorations. They're an obsession, a legacy from Ethan's late grandmother, Eleanor, who passed away last year. And no matter how much I beg, he won't let a single one go. We'd only been living together for a month when I first noticed the boxes. We bought this old Victorian housea, fixer-upper we both loved for its creaky charm, but the attic was Ethan's domain. He'd spend hours up there, unpacking crates he'd brought from his grandmother's estate. At first, I thought it was just nostalgia, a way to process his grief. Eleanor had raised him after his parents died in a car accident when he was 10. She was his world, quirky, bird-obsessed world. But as the weeks passed, I realized this wasn't just about memories. It was something deeper, something that made my skin crawl. "Ethan, we can't keep all of these," I said one evening, holding up a wooden crow with one eye missing. Its beak seemed to leer at me, and I suppressed a shudder. "They're creepy, and there's no room for them downstairs." He didn't look up from the tiny brass bird cage he was polishing. "They're not creepy, Lila. They're hers. They're all I have left of her." His voice was soft but firm, like he was guarding a sacred vow. I tried to be patient. I loved Ethan, his quiet strength, his dry humor, the way he'd make me coffee every morning without fail. But the birds were everywhere, spilling out of the attic into our lives. A porcelain dove sat on the kitchen counter, staring at me while I cooked. A raven carving loomed over our bed, its shadow stretching across the wall at night. I started having nightmares, wings flapping in the dark, beady eyes watching me. I'd wake up gasping, and Ethan would just hold me, whispering, "It's okay, they're just objects." But they didn't feel like objects. They felt alive. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I marched up to the attic, determined to confront him. He was sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by open boxes, holding a delicate glass sparrow that caught the light like a prism. His eyes were red, like he'd been crying. "Ethan, we need to talk about this," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "These things are taking over our home, our life. Why can't you let them go?" He looked up, and for the first time, I saw something like fear in his eyes. "You don't understand, Lila. These aren't just things. They're her stories, her life. If I get rid of them, I'm getting rid of her." I softened, kneeling beside him. "You're not getting rid of her. You'll always have her memories. But we can't live like this. It's not healthy." He shook his head, clutching the sparrow tighter. "You didn't know her like I did. She wasn't just some old lady who liked birds. She was different, special. She said these birds held secrets, that they were her way of keeping the world safe." I frowned, unease creeping on my spine. "Safe from what?" He hesitated, then whispered, "I don't know. She never told me everything, just that I had to protect them. Always." That night, I couldn't sleep. Ethan's words echoed in my mind, mingling with the faint creaks of the house. What secrets could a collection of bird trinkets possibly hold? The next day, while Ethan was at work, I did something I'm not proud of. I went back to the attic and started digging through the boxes, looking for answers. Most of it was what I expected: more birds, some old letters, a few faded photos of Eleanor with Ethan as a boy. But then I found a small, leather-bound journal tucked inside a wooden owl's hollow base. The journal was Eleanor's, filled with meticulous notes in her spidery handwriting. She wrote about the birds as if they were more than objects, guardians, she called them. Each one was tied to a specific moment in her life, a memory she'd sealed into the figurine to keep it safe. But safe from what? The entries grew stranger the further I read, mentioning shadows that watched her, whispers that followed her at night. One line chilled me. The birds hold the weight of my sins, and they must never be destroyed. I was so engrossed that I didn't hear the attic door creak open. Lila. Ethan's voice was sharp, and I jumped, the journal falling to the floor. He stared at it, then at me, his face a mix of betrayal and panic. "You went through her things?" he asked, his voice low. "I'm trying to understand, Ethan," I said, my heart racing. "This isn't normal. Your grandmother wrote about shadows and sins. What was she hiding?" He snatched the journal, his hands trembling. "You shouldn't have touched this. You don't know what you're messing with." "Then tell me," I shouted, tears stinging my eyes. "I love you, but this is tearing us apart. What's so important about these birds?" He sank to the floor, clutching the journal. For a long moment, he was silent. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "She told me once when I was a kid that she'd done something terrible, something she could never undo. She said the birds were her way of making amends, of keeping the past locked away. I thought she was just eccentric, but now I don't know." That's when the twist came, unexpected and sharp. The attic door creaked again, and we both froze. Standing there was Mrs. Hargrove, our elderly neighbor, who'd always seemed sweet but nosy. Her eyes were wide, almost wild, as she stared at the journal in Ethan's hands. "You found it," she said, her voice trembling. "Eleanor's book." Ethan stood, bewildered. "Mrs. Hargrove? What are you doing here?" She stepped forward, her frail frame suddenly imposing. "Eleanor and I, we were friends. More than friends. We shared a secret, one we swore to take to our graves. Those birds theory, not just trinkets. They're wards. They keep something at bay." I felt a chill, like the air had turned to ice. "Keep what at bay?" I asked. Mrs. Hargrove's eyes darted to the shadows in the attic's corners. "Something we summoned long ago, something that should never have been called. Eleanor bounded to those birds, but if you destroy them," she trailed off, her face pale. Ethan and I exchanged a glance, the weight of her words sinking in. Was she delusional, or was there truth to this madness? Over the next few days, we pieced together the story from Mrs. Hargrove and the journal. Decades ago, Eleanor and a group of friends, including Mrs. Hargrove, had dabbled in the occult, seeking answers after personal tragedies. They'd accidentally unleashed something dark, a presence that haunted them, feeding on their guilt. Eleanor, the strongest of the group, had found a way to bind it, using the bird figurines as vessels. But the binding required care, intention, and above all, preservation. Ethan was torn. He'd promised his grandmother to protect the birds, but now he understood the stakes and the danger. I saw the toll it took on him, the way he wrestled with her legacy. One night, he came to me, his face resolute. "Lila, I can't keep living like this," he said. "I love you, and I want a life with you, but I can't just throw them away. If what Mrs. Hargrove says is true, we need to find another way." Together, we researched, consulting old texts, and even a local historian who knew about Eleanor's circle. We found a ritual not to destroy the birds, but to transfer their burden to a new set of objects, ones we could control. It wasn't easy. The night we performed it, the house seemed to groan, the air heavy with unseen eyes. But when it was done, the birds felt lighter. Ordinary. We donated most of them to a local museum, keeping only a single glass sparrow as a reminder of Eleanor's love and her sacrifices. Ethan and I are still together, stronger for it. The attic is empty now, save for a few boxes of our own memories. Sometimes I catch Ethan looking at the sparrow, his eyes distant but at peace. I've learned that love means carrying each other's burdens, even the ones that seem impossible. And sometimes it means believing in the impossible, too.